Welcome home all. You know what time it is. It is indeed Friday, so that means it is, in SuperMex Nation anyway, it is cheap date night. It is Fun Friday, and it's Tag That Track. You know, I kind of let that slip by me today. Fun Friday, cheap date night, Tag That Track on SuperMex Nation on a Friday night. Thank you guys for joining us. As always, definitely appreciate your time. We do look at it that way. You guys are giving us a little bit of your life for this amount of time that we're on air. And I do appreciate it. It does matter to me, and that's why I take what I do extremely seriously. So real quick before we get started in the main program with my host, Swainbo, back in action and finishing up, getting close to wrapping up our long extended cut version of the Dream Utopian High School in America. I wanted to bring up and mention just before, I guess I just saw this as I was on my way out the door. There's been another mass shooting in the state of Virginia, just barely notified of that, and you know, what do you do, right? You know, I have said on air though for multiple times that this has happened throughout, the last year and a half, 2 years, definitely the last year that I've been on air doing some form of this show, radio or Facebook, YouTube, etc. That there gets to a point where it's like you shrug your shoulders and where's the next one going to happen? And that sounds ugly and crude, but it's the truth. That's kind of where we are at the state in which we are, in our society, where we expect it to happen somewhere. We literally just wait for whenever the next one is, and then we say, oh, poor this, poor that, and prayers and condolences to the families of the loved ones that have been lost. I think in this case there's at least 11, not done entirely yet. There may be more, I don't know, but I'm tired of doing that. And unfortunately, I don't have the ability to snap my fingers and make all that right tomorrow. But this is the one thing I know we can do. One, you can talk about it, you can bring focus, and you can get more minds on something, and you raise awareness. And more than likely what's going to end up happening is you're going to draw some distinction on the items that take place or the different events that take place, the method, the people that perpetrate the action, all of that. If you have focus on it, you're more likely to find solution. And here's the last thing I'll say about it, is that I'm really not happy, or I'm really tired of people saying, well, it's going to happen and you can't stop everything, or you can't stop somebody from shooting someone. I'm not saying you can't, or that you can do that. I'm not saying that, yes, I can snap my fingers and in the SuperMex world everything is better. I'm not saying that. I'm not a fool, and I'm deadly serious about this. But damn it, to begin with that mentality guarantees that you will not stop it, and you will not make efforts or find solution. You will not find a way to preclude or possibly prevent those types of actions. And now I'm not just talking about isolated instances that maybe some community, let's say our backyard, Fresno, maybe, and I don't know, I'm not an expert, in law enforcement, a former soldier, but I'm not a law enforcement expert. Maybe in Fresno, there's training, maybe they talk about it, maybe there are briefings, there are meetings, there are seminars, etc., that deal with these instances, and I'm sure there are all over the country. And maybe one community does it slightly better than the next. And maybe our community does it better than a community to the south of us or to the north of us. And maybe, just maybe, we stop something. That's good, obviously, but that kind of needs to happen systematically across the country. Now, I know there is a local thing, a local component here, where individual entities and departments, law enforcement, etc., have to do their due diligence and their roles or responsibilities as those entities in those particular locales. But I'm going to say it. I think, this gets to another level, maybe, state and national. Maybe we need to have some protocol. I don't know, you guys maybe don't remember this. Some of you probably do. But, in the old days, I'm going more like really old days. I remember one time we did a drill in school where if the sirens went off and there was potential nuclear threat or a bomb or missiles over, then we had a drill. We had to get under the desk in school, and we had to do other things if there were emergencies. Those protocols are in place in schools, and I'm just saying schools, but other things. My point is that was a national effort. That was a national effort to hold accountable local entities at the state and local, meaning county, etc., city, holding them accountable for making sure that they did these things, because they could have happened all over the country. Clearly, these mass shootings can happen. I don't think anybody will argue with me anywhere in the country. I don't know if we have that. I'm just going off on air. My apologies, but I would like to see maybe we have some national protocol with how to handle and not just leave it up to local entities. Not saying that they can't. Some can, some maybe not so good. But wouldn't you like to know that we get on this at a national level and say there is a national protocol on how to deal with mass shootings in schools, in organizations, large places with mass amounts of people? That's what I'm saying. Some type of protocol. I'm a military guy. You guys know how it works for me. There's an SOP in the Army for everything. Standard operating procedure. There really is. There's a procedure for everything. I don't know. Maybe we get to that at some level, but I will say it because it's obligatory. Hearts and prayers to the families of the loved ones that were lost just today in Virginia Beach. I don't want to hyperbolize or make it more than that, but you have to feel for those people because they didn't wake up this morning with the intent to lose a loved one. I doubt very highly that was the case. Matter of fact, take that back. SuperMex looked in the crystal ball and knows that was not the case. So prayers and condolences to the loved one. So let's get started on air with my homeboy Swainbo. We got education to talk about tonight.
What's up, my man?
It is one of those nights, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so
yeah. Happy Friday.
I think you kind of know. I mean, so we do have things in place like for education, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have safety drills,
Yep.
stuff like that. Do they deal with like shootings? I
Yeah.
mean, what do we have for that?
Yeah, so every school has safe school plan, and it's constructed with the administration, the teachers, the local law enforcement. They all have a hand in it, and anytime something occurs, it's in there.
Yeah.
That can, it has a set procedure to deal with that. We test it, we test it, and thank God we haven't had to do it in real. But we go through the drills. Every month we do fire drills.
So every month?
Every month,
Okay.
yes. We do fire drills, we do lockdowns, we do evacuations.
Now, I know about fire drills, so lockdowns I'm not as familiar with. I don't remember if we did, okay, so I was...
Lockdowns is something new. I know that when I was in school, younger, we didn't really do lockdowns. We did the siren, and we got underneath the
So my
desks and
last
stuff.
year, you remember that. So
Yeah,
my
yeah,
last
yeah.
year teaching was 2001.
Yeah.
I want to say. So I don't remember lockdowns. I remember fire drills,
Yeah.
meaning doing them as a teacher, having to do them as a teacher. I don't remember that.
Yeah, we were. I've been teaching since '93, and certain schools. I was at one school district, and we didn't do lockdowns, and then Central, we've been doing it pretty consistent
Okay.
since then. So
lockdowns, I'm going to say, are more for something like this.
intruder.
Exactly. So somebody
Active
on
shooter.
campus
Yeah.
that, and I do know this, that there are definitely more processes in place, like if somebody walks onto campus or somebody like is seen on campus that didn't go to the office first and get a
Right.
little name tag, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
because I think that's all necessary now.
Yeah.
You can't get onto a campus without checking in and getting a name tag, let people know who you are. So there's a process to being on campus. So if somebody's walking around
in a perfect world.
well, okay,
people slip
correct. Correct me as
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Yeah. But yes, there is
but
a
you're
procedure.
right.
There is
So-
a procedure that is somebody that comes on the campus that it's not supposed to be in there or have not gone through the proper protocols to check in.
Right.
There is a procedure in place how to handle that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if somebody, let's just say like generically, so somebody walks onto a campus and, other than looking shifty, like, other than looking shifty,
Yeah.
but if they walk on campus and they're an adult, and I'm going to say, probably not Central or high school, but definitely your school because it's small,
Yes.
much more contained,
Yeah.
you're going to know. If somebody's walking around, you're going to know that, one, they may not be a teacher because you know your staff. I'm going to guess you know probably everybody in your staff, right?
Oh, everybody.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So there's my rule for like smaller campuses.
Yeah.
You know more people.
You know your students.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I mean,
Yeah.
larger campuses, it's hard to know every single teacher. Some guy might walk by that you've never seen before, and he's been teaching there for 5 years.
Right.
So that's why that's
Very
another.
true.
Actually, that's another component to why I'm a strong advocate for a smaller school. I really am, because you know more people.
Yeah.
And visually, immediately you can identify them. And if they're not, and if you don't know them, you can't identify them. like, hey, excuse me, sir, you know, ma'am, you know, excuse me, sir, ma'am.
Can I help you?
Can I help you?
Yeah.
And then if it's some crazy whack job trying to get on campus to do harm to kids or in a public setting, we're talking about schools now, you know, for you, because you're you're my school guy expert, right?
Right.
But like in case of schools, then you would know that this person isn't, you know, a personnel that should be in this location.
Right.
And then you could say, like you said, excuse me, can I help you? And then if they can't answer with any kind of decent response, then you know they're not supposed to be there.
You're on the walkie-talkie. You're calling your
Exactly.
administration.
Exactly.
You're calling
in which
the
case,
lockdown,
in which
and you're
case
going
that
through your
becomes
procedures. Yeah.
that becomes prevention, right?
It is.
Then you'd have to be careful. You'd have to be careful yourself.
That's why I've got a baseball bat by my desk.
Let me ask you this. So I think
I do.
That's funny.
I
All right, so
actually
this is
do.
going to go where it goes. So I don't know. You know,
Trust me, I
you
do.
And, you and I kind
It's
of
right here, man.
Yeah, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit. Maybe not specifically in a show. I think we may have touched on it, but you know, the want, because I see it more now, the want on the part of some people to arm, like with weaponry, not a bat.
Educators.
Educators on campus,
Yeah.
and I think I told you I'm not for that
Right.
because it sounds like a good idea, but there's potential danger in that too. You magnify danger, and that's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Is like I don't want. Here's why. Here's why. I know where I was at. You know where I taught Parlier. I know for a fact that, for instance, and get into the weeds if you want, but there are definitely some lady teachers, you know, maybe some of the elder ones or some of the smaller, you know, size-wise teachers, that there's a young dude that can just roll that up, beat her down, and take a weapon. You know, I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I can get away with it. Maybe they couldn't take a weapon from me and disarm me.
Right.
But that's not every teacher.
Right.
And so what do? You only have Mr. Martinez on campus throughout all the day with all classes? No, can't do that. So I'm not for that. But I think we did talk about, I don't know if that was, maybe it was you, but we talked about, no, it wasn't you.
Yeah.
We talked about having specific personnel, and we can talk about this tonight because it has to do with our dream high school.
Yeah, police officer.
And we didn't talk about, I don't think we've talked about security.
We haven't really talked about security.
So, I mean, we're free to do what we want here, your buddy. So, I mean,
Well,
in a dream high school, I mean, so we, like, let's use our high school that we know, for example. I don't know if they have enough security personnel for that entire campus. It's probably not enough.
No. When
What would you guess they have? Armed.
One.
So it's like, I think it's this, one per site. One, and I don't mean just our central, but I mean like normal high schools, there's one like dedicated security person.
In a perfect world, there are
From law enforcement.
there are school districts that share an officer. They have an officer that goes to, let's say, 2 or 3 campuses.
Right.
I know that in Fresno Unified, that was the goal, to have a police officer at each campus. I know that every year it changes. I'm not sure if they're still upholding that policy, but when I was an administrator, they did have a police officer at every campus. In Central, we had a police officer at the high school. We had a sheriff's officer at West Campus because it is county. When we had our 2 middle schools,
What did you have at Rio Vista?
we shared a police officer between the 2 middle schools. The police officer was stationed at our school, but went
Back then it was UNL cap.
right, and went between the 2 schools. When the 3rd middle school came about, they've kind of changed throughout the years, where they had 1 police officer going through the 3. They had a sheriff out at Glacier and a police officer between the 2 city schools. There's been a lot of configurations.
Because middle school is serious business too now. Middle school is serious business.
It is.
I mean,
it is.
kids traffic and drugs on campus at middle schools.
Yes, they do.
You know, and some of my friends. I mean, let's face it. Drugs have always been in schools.
Yeah.
You know it. I know it.
Yeah.
I think everybody kind of knows it.
Yeah.
Right. But middle schools have become, you know, that's. Yeah, it's worse than that. I think, I don't say worse than it ever has been. I don't like to hyperbolize it, right? But there's no question that, you know, there's some kids on campus at a middle school that can be damn dangerous too. And so
for sure,
I would worry about that, you know, in terms of like carrying weapons on campus. But here's my thought: is like, so you're talking about sharing between campuses for middle school, you know, an officer.
Yeah, it was all based on budget. It
always is.
Every year changed. Every year changed based on the budget, what the district had allotted. There are all kinds of different factors. With Fresno Police Department, they run a contract with the schools, and the school district pays for the officer, pays for the car. So they have to supply an office. There's a lot of a lot of behind the scenes.
So there's
a cost.
Like there's cost individually, obviously. There's logistical cost.
Logistical
the things
cost.
that these people need to conduct their business, their job.
Yeah.
A vehicle, a place, an
office,
a home base, an office.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm getting back to is like in our case, for our district, you can have a site, one per site. But our site's so damn big, I mean, it's not the same size as a lot of other, well, take that back, it isn't. It's bigger than every high school in the Valley. It's the biggest high school in the Valley by population.
Right.
So I would think that, because it's a budget thing, you know where I'm going with this, I think immediately. It's a budget thing, but they should have X amount of law enforcement personnel per number. Whatever that number, I don't know. I don't know what the number is. I don't think okay, we don't know. My point being is that you can't say, okay, Central has an officer. We're 4,700 students. One officer for 4,700 students? Sorry, that ain't cutting it. Yeah. Okay, maybe for another school in the city, maybe one of the smaller ones, it's 2,000 or 1,500, maybe. Yeah. And maybe not, But it goes down to something you and I have been talking about on this show consistently now for a number of weeks, if not a month or two. But it's about placing our money, putting our money where our mouth is.
Being very smart about what you spend your money on.
Do we want to take care of kids?
Yeah.
Do we want to take care of kids? So what does that mean? It means you got to put money down to make sure you don't have one officer at Central High School that's 4,700 students, but maybe 3. I would think, for that size, 1,500, one officer for 1,500. I'm throwing a generic number out there.
Right.
Okay, but one officer for every 1,500 students. Maybe one officer for every 1,000 students. I don't know. My point, though, is that you can't just say, oh, I checked the box. And you know what I'm talking about. At the top in administration, they're going to check the box and say, yeah, we have an officer.
We have an officer.
We have law enforcement on campus.
Right.
And then you know what a guy like me is going to do is like, how many? And for how many?
Right.
How many officers, how many law enforcement personnel, and for how many students per capita do you have? Because I don't think it meets the need, but that I think could be. Now again, we're not talking about the Virginia Beach thing because it wasn't a school per se.
It was a government building.
There you go. Yeah. It was because the guy was a city employee, I believe.
Yeah.
He was an employee. Yeah. So, but here again, we go to. That's a rubric that we can drop down for not just education, but a city or government group of personnel, a building or a department of some kind. Okay, we have 1,500 government employees here, so we should have X amount of law enforcement here, just in case. I mean, I hate doing that, man, but I mean, we're at that point.
Yeah,
are we not?
I think.
Am I wrong?
Well, no, I think you're right. Of course, that's an initial. You've got to go a lot further once you kind of get those officers placed. I'll just take the school district. Okay, so we have a police officer at one campus. We have a sheriff at the other campus. They're working with kids. They're coordinating. They're running programs. They're getting to know the kids. They're doing everything that they possibly can to make connections to keep that school safe. And if we say, okay, we're going to say we want a second officer on this campus because it's getting bigger, then we're going to have to work on coordination, look at the school itself and say, okay, are they both going to be in the same office? Are we going to have one on one side of the campus, one? It opens up a discussion as to how to best utilize your law enforcement.
Correct.
You just can't say, okay, well, I'm just going to put 2 officers on a campus. And there you go. That's you need to. They will work with school administration. They'll work with teachers. They'll work with kids. But you have to kind of be smart about it. So in our dream school, when we say we want per every 1,000 kids, we want a police officer. We need to kind of look at the whole back end of it, the whole coordination part, and what type of programs are those officers going to be involved in? Where are they going to be stationed? What is their kind of, quote, beat of the school? It's just like in a city when you have a city.
Yeah,
and
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's
I'll-
logistical as well.
Correct. So I'm gonna piggyback on that. So like, let's use Central again, and just say specifically the East Campus because that's the bigger campus for our particular. And by the way, guys, so for those of you guys that if you might be new or not, or you've not been with us in a while, Swainbo's an educator current, been on multiple sites and a former principal in administration and as a longtime educator, 26 years.
26 years, starting my 26 years.
26 years,
coming
homeboy.
up, but 14 as an administrator.
26.
So in charge of security. So been there, done that.
Right.
So
he's got background, and we're talking about. So I guess we're tonight we're morphing, right? Adapt and overcome. I'm an old soldier, so it's about adapting and overcoming.
Right.
But school safety, it should be in our metric for how we talk about a dream utopian high school setting in California and the nation. And I think we haven't specifically talked about safety and security. Yeah. So what I'm going to walk back to is what you were just talking about, and it is about putting. Now I'm just saying some arbitrary number. I don't think one law enforcement person for maybe 1,000 to 1,500. And I'm kind of I know. Here's the thing: the minute you put out the larger number, that's where the district will go.
Yeah.
Because they'll check the box.
They'll check the box. You have to look at your school, you have to look at your population, you have to look at your location, you have to look at security measures already in place. You have to kind of look at all that for us to say, okay, this school warrants a second school for X amount of students. So it's not just, I get what you're saying, because it's kind of hard to say, all right, for 1,200,
right.
let's go ahead and let's get another police officer. There's a broader picture that we look at, but it's being proactive when it comes to security rather than reactive. And I think for me, when we talked about the whole idea with arming teachers, there's pros, there's cons. I know for myself, I probably wouldn't want to be armed just because, let's say it's one of my students that I have a relationship with that is on campus and armed. That's going to be kind of a very tough situation to deal with as an educator.
I never thought about that.
And that's been a lot of discussion. And so for me, having armed police officers on campus, I think it's the way to go.
Yeah. So I think I know where you're going. So I mean, I never considered that. Okay, and that's just me being bad. I've been out of the classroom too long, right? Yeah. But I never considered that. What would I do? I think I know what I do, but I'm like ambivalent about that. But then again, the training's different for me. The training's different. Yeah. And so what I get to is like, say, just somebody who wanted to teach, somebody who loves educating young people, right? Yeah. And you put a weapon in their holster.
Let them educate.
And yeah, exactly. You know where I'm going. Yeah. But some kid comes up and they have a weapon, and now that teacher has to do something. Yeah. Pull that weapon out and hurt that kid. Right. I think they'll balk, and not in a bad way. Yeah. Not in a bad way, mind you. Yeah. But they would think twice about responding or reacting.
Well, there'll be a reaction.
With some type of force.
There'll be a delay.
You know
in the
that.
reaction.
You see what I mean there. I mean, clearly you caught that.
Yeah.
There would be delay in action, and in my old business a long time ago, there was no room for delay.
Sure.
You act and you finish the action, whatever it is. Yeah. But if you have a professional that's specific to that role, law enforcement,
that has gone through years and years of training on how to deal with that situation.
Correct. They're trained for it. They're going to look at this ambivalently, with ambivalence, and not be moved by the fact that, okay, I know his aunt, he's been bringing me, a cookie, apple every other day, and now he went crazy. Now I got to do something. You get my point. I think you see that. Yeah. What I wanted to get back to was something you had said, because we're going to feed into you and a quick discussion, an update of sorts on negotiations that Swainbo is in the middle of with his team, and making sure that the Central Unified Teaching Association personnel, the teachers, psychologists, nurses, counselors, get a fair wage and a fair treatment in their contract. We'll get to that right in a second, but I'm going to walk all this back to that. You probably know exactly where I'm going with it, because we had long discussions on And when we had the teaching association negotiating team, including yourself, that was about a month and a half ago, almost 2 months ago.
2 months, yeah.
And we talked specifically about not just a teacher salary raise,
Right.
which currently you guys are in the lowest, sector of the pool of salaries in the whole region. Yeah. And that's been a year that you guys have been negotiating. So I don't want to go too far because my wife's knee deep in it and you know why. But I will say definitely that we talked about putting your money where your mouth is, right, and not just raising a teacher salary, but lowering the class size. Right. That's the first one. You know that because always for me is the first one is, bringing down the class size of every teacher in a school system, because the minute you bring down class size, the minute you begin a better education process for our students.
Agreed.
That one's simple. Yeah. And I'm going to say that because all of America knows, all of SuperMex Nation knows that if you do that, education gets better.
Oh, yeah.
Because a teacher has a better ability to teach a smaller number of kids. Everybody gets that. So here's the thing. To do with that, it wasn't just about lowering class size. That's simple and obvious. It wasn't just about paying teachers what they're worth. That's simple and obvious. But it was also about hiring and expending money, a budget, on additional personnel to meet the needs of students on campus. More nurses, we talked about. More counselors.
Psychologists.
Because these kids have different needs than you and I did. I can tell you right now.
Oh, yeah.
They're dealing with things that we never had to deal with. And if all we do is sit back and cry and complain about how screwed up these kids are, that's on us. Yeah. Because we're the adults, right? So spend some damn money that's supposed to be going for kids anyway, right? Spend some money. Hire more counselors, not just academic, but social and emotional needs, counselors, nurses. I think we said that one night. The nurse at my school when I was in elementary, in Teague Elementary in Central Unified, the nurse was like, if I went to, I used to like to go to her, believe it or not. Here's the thing, she was pretty, she was a nice lady.
She give you a lollipop or something?
She was nice. She was just so damn nice, brother. I mean, seriously, I went to her, and if it was just a little ding or a scrape, I walked out of there like, I'm ready to go back to school. And I went back to class and everything was great because she made me feel good about, just being.
That was sort of a counseling
Precisely.
procedure right there.
That one adult, through no, Freudian, please have a seat or please lay on the couch. Nothing like that.
Right.
But the interaction with that person and the social and emotional benefit to having her there, and the strength she provided to young little dudes and girls on a campus, it mattered.
It did.
It mattered. Yeah. And here's the thing, and we knew she was there because she was dedicated to our site. Now we don't have that, which is something you guys are fighting negotiating. So I'm going to let you speak now on that in the negotiation, but I'm throwing in what we're talking about right now in terms of law enforcement. I would, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I almost, I said 1,000 to 1,500 students, and then I stopped because I know once you say 1,500, that's the number they're going to go to. They're going to do the minimum amount, and that's not being mean. That's a fact. That's a fact. It's all about meeting minimum standards. Okay, and my kid, our kids, my community should not be check the box and meet a standard. My thing is now, maybe I'm thinking for Central High School, every 1,000 students, you need law enforcement personnel. At the East Campus, which is the bigger school for us, maybe 2 or 3 officers.
And stationed throughout the campus.
Broken up into thirds or quadrants of some kind. Exactly. Fours. But broken up into, and then each one is dedicated to that particular area for proximity's sake, so that they're not running across campus. They've got the little ability to get to wherever they need to, like an immediate, and they don't have to run across campus because the other guy's got that location handled. I'm kind of there. I don't think anybody on air or on our show, any of you guys, if you have better idea, please weigh in and comment here on the Facebook page. We want your input. But I'm thinking for every 1,000 students on a campus, that should trigger. You like the word because I've done that with the other population increase. If you get too big, you should automatically build a new high school. If you get more than 1,000 students, you should automatically hire a new officer. You okay with that?
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, so give us an update on
on negotiations. Well, I can't get into specifics because the information is embargoed. But
Embargoed, huh?
yeah, like that. That's the word of the day.
Did you place a tariff on it?
Yikes.
There's the other word of the day.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the other one. Woo. So we had a board meeting this last Tuesday, and we had probably about 250, 300 adults, teachers, parents, students show up in red before the board meeting, and we did an information.
So red's the color now, right?
Red's the color. Red for Ed.
Red for Ed.
Red
Is
for
that,
Ed.
so is that just...
That's a state of California.
Okay,
type
so that's
thing.
all the state of
That's
California.
all state of California.
Not nationwide, no?
No.
Okay.
For right now, it's state of California. I'm sure there's other states that are doing that.
Yeah.
But this is primarily a state of California because.
So that's why everybody was in red.
Yeah, because you had Oakland, you had L.A., you have Central, you have all these school districts
Currently.
that have either striked, going to strike, going through negotiations. It's just kind of a pressure cooker right
Correct.
now. So they did the red for Ed. So we had so many folks show up and did informational pickets.
That was kind of cool, huh?
Yeah, it was great. And
Teachers and parents.
teachers, parents, students, people driving by honking. It was really good to bring attention to our cause. So the next day we had fact-finding in the morning. And we were going through the fact-finding process, and we were able to, within that process, we were able to reach a tentative agreement.
Okay.
We will be rolling that out Tuesday with the teachers. We're going to have an after-school.
Yeah, so I won't ask you particulars because
Yeah.
you don't need to. But
Yeah, yep.
so as of right now, you have a tentative agreement.
Tentative agreement. We're going to present it to our
Membership.
staff, our membership, and then they're going to vote on it, and they're either going to say yay or nay. And if they say yes, then it will go to the board. The board will basically rubber stamp approve it, and then we will move on.
Okay, so we know out here. So the membership for Central Unified Teaching Association on the west side of Fresno, California, it's in excess of 800
Yeah.
professionals.
850-ish.
Yeah, it's about 850, give or take a few.
Yep.
My wife will get on me about not knowing the exact number, but about 850, give or take a few, professionals. And again,
Yes.
that's not just teachers, ladies and gentlemen.
That's counselors, psychologists, that's
Nurses.
nurses. Yes.
So professionals
Yes.
that have degrees to, and not just degrees, but education and a level of schooling to deal with their specific
Credentials.
exactly,
they have
with their
credentials.
specific area.
Yes.
And so you got a tentative agreement, and hopefully everything goes well. You take it to your membership,
Yes.
and I won't ask you on that, but I mean, so you're going to have to do the membership vote.
Yes.
If they vote in favor, then it goes to the school board,
And then they approve it, and then we're off.
provided
and
they
running.
approve it. What's the chance they don't?
Typically,
Well, if you've got a tentative agreement, you have a tentative agreement. Let me back that up. You have a tentative agreement with the district, the school district. So then the school district turns around and tells the school board that we are in agreement.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, we recommend that you approve.
yeah.
Right?
But with this process that we have been, that's how it should be, that's how it is in a lot of districts. With ours, through this process, it's kind of been the district and the board working together. I've heard differences of opinions between board members telling the district what to do, district telling the board what's going on. I've been hearing a lot
Because the board, I mean, there's 7 people. They don't have to listen to what the district says.
No.
They can make their decision as they want.
But from what I've heard, they've been kind of behind the scenes.
Okay. So if you've got a tentative agreement, then
Yep.
the district is basically, in essence, they're letting the board know, the school board know, that we are in agreement, we can do this.
And then they'll vote
Hint,
on it.
we recommend, because that's the way it goes in formality. You go to the meeting, right? And then somebody gets up there, one of the assistant superintendents or the superintendent, and he says, these are the parameters of what the contract is going to be and what it stipulates. The district recommend that, recommend for approval.
Yes.
And then it goes to the 7 people,
And
then they vote up or down
Yeah,
on
right.
whether the thing's approved or not.
Yeah. But that's pretty much a formality.
I would say so, yeah, normally. I mean, normally you go
Normally.
to it and the district recommends, and usually the board goes along with it because
Yes.
the district's supposed to do their job
Right.
and their due diligence and make sure that, all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted.
Right.
And by the time it gets to them, it should be done already.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So,
Yeah.
I'm optimistic, where you are with, it's been over a year. It's been a year.
14 months.
Okay, 14 months that you guys have been doing this negotiating.
Yeah.
And I'll be, and I'm I'm not harsh, but I'm honest, and I think that's way too long. I thought that should have been done a long time ago.
You want to know that
because now you guys got to start another negotiation, right?
We're going to be
for the next year.
We're going to be coming up on that. I have missed probably through this whole negotiation process more days
out of the class
than I ever have. And what a waste. What an absolute waste.
Well, I'll speak generically for the district. You know where we need you.
Yes.
We need you in your classroom.
Agreed.
And I'm not going to be mean, but
yeah.
I don't need you in a negotiating room.
No, you don't.
Other than like the mandatory minimum. There you go. There's a minimum, right? There's a minimum we can adhere to. But, I'm going to say, and I'm going to speak for our district, we need good teachers, you and the others, because the thing is that negotiating team is, you guys are a lot of a lot of badass teachers. You guys are really good teachers.
Yeah.
And you guys need to be teaching in your classrooms.
Yeah.
Now, you're on the negotiating team because you have the weight, the experience, and the knowledge to be able to negotiate for your membership, because you guys represent, in essence, your members, 800 and something of them, and you have the ability to negotiate and bargain for them.
Right.
But ultimately, I think it should be simple. You guys should be in the class teaching.
I agree.
And not have to be out of class to negotiate for, a contract. So
here's a novel approach. How about the administration does what's best for kids, and they work with the association. We work together, and we say, okay, we're working towards a common cause here, and we want to do what's best for kids.
And it should be common, yes?
Yes.
It should be common.
Let's go ahead and let's not worry about the bickering and, I don't want this to happen, or no, we can't do this. And let's look at, okay, what can we do as a school district and as an association, and come together? What can we do to do what's best for kids? I sit there in these negotiation meetings.
That should be the beginning and the end.
Yeah,
because
it should be a one-day thing.
You're negotiating in good faith, but the good faith should be simple. Okay, what do we need to give these kids the best opportunity to learn?
Yeah.
And let's just go from there. I will say, and I do think it's a money thing. And so for any of you guys out there listening, it's like, that's not bad, right? I mean, okay, there is money involved. You have to pay people to do a job.
Right.
You have to pay for resourcing material. You have to pay for facilities. There is cost in education. I'm aware of that. You're aware of that. But I'm really, I'm really hard bone on pinching a penny in education. I really am, because I think that generically for the United States, who we are in education, I really do think that we need to start trimming the fat and cutting the excess, because you know I'm about this. I've said it to you on air, and I've said it to people in public. If the principal penny, the dollar, is not filtered through the prism of what you're talking about, what you always say, and I'm with you on it, is that it should be about kids first. And my line is, and I know I've said it to you too about it, but at the very base of this pyramid that we look at as education, at the very base of the pyramid is the relationship between a student and a teacher and the classroom. That's it. Okay? All of that after that is superfluous or unnecessary by degrees.
It's fluff, if you ask me.
Correct. Right. By degrees. Okay, so, and here's why, because this is what I do know. I was good, and I don't want to go too far about it, because we're on air here, but I loved what I did, and I was a good teacher, and my kids got result. And how did I do that? I adequately saw, unfortunately I was in the Army first, and then I got into teaching, and so I came in with the mentality that my mission objective, my goal was to give them everything they need to do, or to be quality students, make sure that, one, I'm knowledgeable and an expert on my field and subject. That's what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. Got to be an expert, got to know your business, and that I would not let anything detract or deter, alter my ability to teach in the classroom. So I shaved out so many other things, and it was all about that 56, 57 minutes. My time was different.
Right.
My 56, 57 minutes for every single period, and I don't want to say I got, like mechanical about it, but nothing violated my 56 to 57 minutes. You and I have had long discussions on not interfering with class time instruction.
Those instructional minutes are
Those
sacred.
instructional
They're
minutes
sacred.
would not, I mean, you would have to, it'd take a horde of piranha to try to get an instructional minute away from me.
Yeah.
And I got result because my kids were in class learning.
On task, engaged.
On task, engaged, and internalizing, getting good information.
Yeah.
Novel concept that they would get better, they would learn.
Yeah.
So, ultimately where it goes to is like what I'm saying is that we need to really get a serious handle as a community. Watch this, not as a community where you and I live and work, but as a community in this country about how we educate. Because I do think we've gone way beyond what it was to be a teacher in the classroom. And I'm not blaming teachers per se, but I'm blaming the whole thing. That it isn't about what does this teacher need to do a great job in the classroom. Okay, because if you do get a hard handle on that and you place the focus on the most important element, which is teacher to student, right here, teacher to student. This is the most important thing that you will advocate for, spend money on, and try to, I guess, build a system around. Because you and I both know there's so many, and we've even talked about, we've reached it a little bit in terms of our topic with curriculum in classes and courses. I think you're kind of like me. I would cut a lot of excess courses that are unnecessary and that have nothing to do with the child being able to read, write legibly with quality, and being able to, balance a checkbook or do simple math when they graduate, or know their history, scary thought, civics, be a civic-minded individual with you, but just fundamental things that we've pulled away from so much that I'm saying this, we need to get back to center. We need to get back to center of what the whole purpose to a free, compulsory education in a Western society was, and is, or should be. That's where I'm at. That's where the money.
And I agree. And the number one job of your district office is to serve those students and to serve those teachers, to do whatever it is they need to, as administration, to make sure that those students and those teachers are successful. I heard a while back, I heard a superintendent say that. Make that statement. We are servants to you, and addressing the crowd, and there was a crowd of teachers, and I kind of chuckled because I was like, really?
Was it actualized?
No. It's the whole thing about words and actions, and it was just words. But when I was an administrator, as a principal, my sole job was to do whatever it takes for those kids to be successful and those teachers. When my teachers came in to my office and said, "Hey, Swain, I need this because it's going to help my students, do doing this and this," I was like, "All right, let's do it. Let's do it." I didn't waver on that, and there were some times where I got a lot of pushback from the district, and I went, "Seriously? Hey, this is a good thing here." And I can remember.
Why are we quibbling?
I can remember many years ago sitting in front of an assistant superintendent and telling this particular person about our school-wide literacy program, and we were talking about at that time. It was the state testing. They were called CSTs, and every one of our teachers and our PE teachers, all of our teachers were teaching high-frequency words that they're going to see with testing, that they're going to see within the standards, within their content. And I was telling this person about, this is what we've envisioned, and this is what we're going to do. Nah, just every word out of this person's mouth was like, "No, no, you can't do that. You can't do that." And I just kind of, and I can remember it very vividly. It was like, I honestly just walked out of there and I just said, "You know what? Honestly, screw you. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, what's best for my kids and for my teachers." And I went ahead and I did it. And then 3 years later, the district came in with this district-wide program that was exactly like ours, and I just went, yeah, whatever. So, long story short, your administrators, your site level, your district administrators, your district office people, all of your people on campus that are not in the classroom, their sole job is to support student learning, support teachers.
Right.
That's it. And that's not happening. And until we have that happen, we're going to have this frivolous spending. We're going to have, ooh, shiny object over here.
Correct.
Let me throw millions of dollars over
Correct.
here. Ooh, let's buy that. Ooh, let's buy that. And the money is not going to be going to where it needs to be, which is going to be for kids. We really have been fighting hard with this last contract on social and emotional support.
Which is what we began the top of the hour with.
Which is the nurses, the counselors, the school psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
And we're making progress, but we're going to keep hammering on that because kids these days are dealing with all kinds of crazy things that you and I, like you said before, we never imagined when we were younger.
I know.
And it's just just a child walking home from school and going through a gang-infested neighborhood
Right.
and having to deal with the bullying and having to deal with the fear of
The beat down on the way home.
Am I going to, or the possible I'm going to end up in the hospital or I'm going to get shot or killed now. Having to deal with all that stuff takes a major toll on our students. And so we have to have the individuals in our school to be there, and we do it as teachers, but we need more. And
You brought up some ugly memories for me because there were times when some of the most miserable moments in my life were the bell ringing at the end of the school day and knowing that I had to walk home, and I know I was going to take a beat down.
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew it because on my way home I was going to get beat up.
Yeah,
I knew it.
And now it's on the way home, and I could possibly get shot by a drive-by.
Yeah.
I could possibly get stabbed. I could go home and my house is robbed. I can go home and something's happened to my family or my parents. It's magnified, and our schools are just little cultures and climates when
Correct.
it comes to that.
Correct.
Our society just as in a whole
Right.
is people deal with that every day, and so a bigger thing is we need our supports for our kids in our schools, but we need our supports for people in our state and people in our country.
Right.
And we could go on and talk 2 hours on that.
I get you, but I think we're in general agreement, and I'm going to guess that most of you guys out there, comment freely as you need to on the Facebook page. But I think just about every American would agree. I mean, when you put it in these terms, nobody's going to disagree up front, right? Nobody's going to say, if I said generically to our audience or just anybody watching today or in the future, they're all for posterity, they're on the page, the YouTube page is SuperMex International. So if you go and you listen and you say, and I say something like, with Swainbo and I, we believe that all money in an education system should be filtered through the prism of how does this affect
what's best for
the
kids.
student in the classroom with the teacher, and how does that make the kid a better learner and have a better ability to be a student and learning. Because, I mean, listen, there's no education if there is no learning.
Right.
The whole point to it all, right, is that they learn something in a seat or in a classroom with the teacher. So if I'm filtering all my expenditure through, okay, I'm gonna write a check for how many hundreds of thousands, how does that affect and how does that relate to the mission? And if it doesn't directly relate to the mission, then it's unnecessary.
I agree with you. That's how I did things.
Okay, and so here's that, because you were on a site and you had to do things with budgets, right?
Yes.
You had to make decisions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that sounds like, okay, so they're going to say, okay, SuperMex, you're absolutely right. I agree with that. Most people agree with that.
Yeah.
So that's the easy side. The hard side, and this is something you saw as well as a principal, the hard side is this, making decisions like once it gets further down the list and then you're down here, you got all the things you need, okay, textbooks, this, at the top of the list, right? Chairs, desks, textbooks, material, teacher salaries, items that directly affect, again, the student in the classroom with their teacher. Then you get down the list and there are other things like, well, we want to offer this cool elective. We're going to offer this, we're going to have this, we're going to have this. We're going to raise... You know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do? We're going to raise to 6 figures people that have never even been in the classroom salaries. Okay, that's what I'm doing, man. And so I may have some people out there that don't like it, but I don't care at this point. I don't. Yeah. You got people making $150,000 to $200,000 that are not in a classroom. In some cases, have never been in a classroom.
I agree with you. That's very true.
That to me is a moral crime to me.
Yeah.
That they can make that much money. So once that's down on the low end of the list in terms of like where our money's getting spent, if I'm with you and I've got a red pen and I'm slashing budget, I'm sorry, but I'm cutting things because it's going to hurt somebody, but that hurt is going to mean more money for the kid in the classroom.
Yeah.
And that's where I go with it. And that's the sticky part. Right. Because what somebody's going to say is like, there's a parent, right? And they're going to say, well, my son or daughter is in this club or this thing or this activity, or she was a part of that, or she had that person, and even though he wasn't a teacher, she really liked him. That's when it gets into the difficulty, the red zone, because it gets close to home, meaning it affects you personally, and then maybe like, well, it is valuable because it worked for my son or daughter. You know what I'm going to do because the needs of the few do not outweigh the needs of the many. And that's what I was trained to do in service in the Army, and that's what I believe, that for the good of the whole. Sometimes the individual may have to give up a little bit. The problem is that nowadays, and I'm going to say it in education, the individuals, provided they have a powerful parent or a loud parent or they have the ability to move people, they get what they want. And you know what I'm talking about? You've seen it.
I know.
You've seen it long enough in education. I've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
Where, you know, a parent or two can rile up a base, a group, and it may not even be what's best for the district, but they're going to get it done. And then board members listen or superintendents listen or whatever, and next thing you know, it's so far removed from the actual classroom that it has nothing to do anymore with education. It's about politics or social, and then it moves away from that. But I think, you know, generally we can definitely agree that there's no question that the money for education is there strictly and only because of students walking through the doors, the average daily allowance that the kids get, the school district gets, because a child walks through the doors and they get X amount of dollars from the school, or the state superintendent of schools in California pays every district per kid, and that's what it has become. It's become a number. How many students we have, how much money we taking in today, and then everything flows from there. Now I know the business end. I know there's a business end. I understand that. Okay, but you make your decisions, and if you're making decisions based on the dollar and the penny, remind yourself that there are little guys and gals walking through the doors that they're not a dollar sign.
Oh, I know.
They're a little mind, a little American potentially down the road, doing good things out in the world. And we don't look at them that way anymore. They're just a number. Now individually we look at our own, yes. But as a whole, you know, that's
and we ran into that with this recent round of negotiations. This 14 months, it was no, 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 and it's like, why? Well, because look at the bottom line. Look at but look at what you're spending over here, which you're just pissing away money over here, and it should be refocused on these things. That's what's going to help for kids. Oh, no, 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 no. And it's a constant battle, and it's been a constant battle, and it's irritating. It irritates me, and I try the best I can to kind of sit there and to not go off the rails on these people, because you know I'm a professional and
you have to remain.
And I have to remain professional, but I just kind of look at it and I go, how do some of these people, how do they sleep at night? I don't get, well, and anyway, they don't care.
You know,
these people,
I tell you, call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Okay, you and I both know, and it's an ugly subject, but it's the damn truth. And I'm sorry, but you know, put your big boy, your big girl drawers on. It's a fact. There are people in education that don't give a damn.
Exactly.
They don't care.
They're there for themselves.
Now, and I'm going to be real nice here. Be nice after I'm pretty hard on somebody, but that's teachers. That's you know, a janitor. That's everybody.
That's everybody.
Okay,
that's across the board.
That is across the board.
There's a lot of
There are parents that don't give a damn about anybody but their own kid.
Exactly.
I get it. I understand that. But you know, don't come and preach to me about how you care about the community, the system, when the reality is you really just give a damn about yourself and your kid. That's it. Okay, so when all of that gets mixed in, and I'm going to say it, you know, check this out. When we started the conversation with about size and numbers for like law enforcement because of this shooting in Virginia Beach, once things grow, Tim, and you know this, and I like doing this. I did this to Crow the other night. I was like, and you're going to agree with me. I was like, and you're going to agree with me. And so he caught on. He goes, well, I like the way you do that because you make us agree because we can't say no because it's logical. And I was like, that's it, right? I make you agree because it's the truth and it's right. Yeah. But when you look at the number, the bigger we get, the more disparate and the more the less cohesive and the less together we are.
I agree. Yeah.
And the less likely we are to make good decisions for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
Okay, my buddy over here, my friend over there, she lives down the street. Mm-hmm. I know her because, like I told my daughter, I told her, I know her dad. Mm-hmm. Like, who? I was like, yeah. I went. Her dad was 2 years older than me in school. I knew he played baseball.
Yeah. Because you had a small community, you had a small school.
There was relevance.
Yeah, there was
relevance.
And now they're large, they're spread out.
You have subgroups.
You have subgroups, and there's kids that go to a large school, and they fall in between the cracks. I've talked about this before. There's kids that have gone a full day and haven't even talked to a teacher or haven't talk period, just goes and
no contact,
no
emotion, no nothing.
Yeah, there's all kinds of that stuff going on, and so when
I like to take that and use that, and I'm gonna take it out of education for a second here. That's America.
That's America.
That we've subdivided, and you know we've been talking about this on air. There are racial issues now that are more magnified than at any time in the history of our country, going back to like Civil War, right? You're exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating. Yeah. I'm not. No. Because unfortunately for me, I do pay attention. I take in a lot of information and a lot of news throughout the day. Literally, this is my gig now. Yeah. I literally internalize information all day from all over the country, all over the planet, and I come to this forum, and not professing to be an expert, but definitely professing to know a lot more than average. I read way more than I used to. Yeah. And I used to, you ask my wife, I read a lot in general, but more, and the funny thing is I read more now about current items than I've ever done. Yeah. Because here's my rule on this, and this is kind of education too, as an educator, right? Is that you're supposed to take in a lot of information. You're supposed to learn all the time. Learning never stops, right, brother?
Learner, sure.
You're a lifelong learner. You're supposed to never stop learning. That's what makes you a better educator, a more effective instructor.
Agreed.
Okay, full agreement there. See, I bring you along. Yeah. So, I do believe in that, but it's also about getting that information out, and now you can make good decisions based on quality information. And especially in today's age where there's so much stuff. I don't know if you saw, but they did that thing on Pelosi where they altered her video to make her sound like she was drunk, and they ran that all over the place. I had somebody post that on my page.
Oh, wow.
That, oh, look, Pelosi's drunk, she's on Xanax, she's got dementia, and she's an alcoholic. Yeah. And so here's the crazy thing. I was watching a piece, and they clipped to that the Wednesday that she was on air, and so I heard a little bit. I don't listen to all of them all the time. I take in what I need to, and then I move on to something else. And so I listened to that a little bit, and I'm like, she's getting her talking points out, right? And then when I saw the video pop up on SuperMex Nation, the forum on Facebook, I was like, wait a minute,
where did I see that?
Doesn't sound right. It wasn't just where I knew where I saw it, but immediately like something doesn't sound right, quite literally, right? Yeah. All right, so then I punched the video and I watched the whole video of the doctored video, and when I was done, I was like, something's not right there. I didn't know what, because somebody posted it on my page, like, this is a fact, this is something, information, taking in information. I take in a lot of information. I'm like, in their case, the problem was that I'd taken so much information that I had heard the uncut, undoctored version, and I knew something was wrong. Yeah. So lo and behold, by the end of the night, Facebook comes on and said the video was doctored. Yeah. And it was altered to make her sound like she was drunk or slurring her words or incoherent. Yeah. And I'm sitting here like, I told my wife, I was like, I'm listening to too much of this stuff, man. Because I could do this, right? I was like, no, that's not right, because I've heard that. But my point being is that, it's about taking in info, making yourself a better learner, and then coming back and putting it out, in your case, to your kids. But I'm gonna get back to we're finishing. You know what? We're not gonna be able to get to tag that track. I'm gonna apologize tonight for you guys because, like, again, we got kind of sidebarred.
We were going to talk about social studies. We were going to talk about language arts.
We're still getting there.
You know what? We're talking security though. Which is good,
security, because here's the thing. And it has been. I have a list at home of the things that I've got a list of like 10 items we've gone through about 7 of them. As I've gone back through the videos for us, for the time that we've been on air, about a month and a half now.
Yeah.
But we've gotten through 7 or 8 of the items. I'll have to go look again tonight. Yeah. But safety and security is on the list, by the way. Okay, exactly. Safety and security is on the list. And here's why, and I'll bring this back to center for us, for you and I. If a child cannot learn, for a variety of reasons, social, emotional, impairments of some kind, bad home life, whatever, if they can't learn, then it makes it more difficult for us to do our job as educators, correct? That's simple. And again, here's the thing. The school district is getting money for that child walking through the door, irrespective of whether that kid can learn well or not good at all.
Seat time.
Correct. Okay, the district is getting money. As a matter of fact, the dollar amount is the same as little Billy next to him, who has the good situation. Maybe he's got engaged parents. Maybe he's a good learner. Maybe he's got, he's not going to get beat up on the way home for fun. Right. I got beat up on the way home, not for my fun, by the way.
Yeah,
I got picked on a lot for somebody else's fun. Yeah. But they're not. They may be equal in the dollar amount, but they're not equal in their access or ability to learn.
Agreed.
So what I'm getting at is that, say, little Billy and little Bob right next to each other. Billy has the better situation, whatever it is. He's a better learner. He's gotten greater access. He's going to be a better student. He's going to know more. He's going to be a more intellectual person once he graduates our system and moves off into the world. Bob is still making the district. Notice I did that. Bob is still making the district the same amount of money that Billy's making the district. So they deserve the same.
I agree with you. 100%.
They deserve the same. Now, if Bob can't learn because of this, then we need to find out why Bob can't learn. Right. Because the amount of money that Bob brings in is the same amount of money as Billy's bringing in, or little Susie, or Maria over here, or whoever. It's the same amount of money. Right. So they both deserve the ability to learn.
They all deserve the best.
And just because one kid has a better opportunity and it's easier, doesn't mean we gravitate toward that child.
Right.
Because it's not the other kid's fault 9 times out of 10. And I'll say it, ladies and gentlemen, especially elementary, man. Come on. In elementary, those kids, man, they're just coming through the door. They're just like ready to learn.
Yeah.
If they've got issues, those issues aren't of their doing.
No.
Those issues, and that's the one thing I did learn about being in elementary for a little bit.
Yeah.
Other than, man, it's crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah, no thank you on that.
Boy. I love teaching high school, and I did middle school for a little bit. And I did a gig at, I'll never forget this, so any of you guys out there, West Fresno Elementary. West Fresno Elementary.
I know where that's at,
I did first grade for 1 month, long-term sub-assignment. Hey, listen.
Give this guy a medal.
I was a basic training honor graduate. I was an infantry soldier. I served during the Persian Gulf. But that 1 month at West Fresno,
none of that stuff would prepare you for that.
Man, here's what I've told people, and then we'll leave with this because we're out of time. Yeah. But Tim, I went home wiped out.
I was going to say, you were tired, huh?
Tired, man, like you couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Now I'll go bust a couple miles, I'll knock out 40, 50 push-ups sitting down. But that not just, the emotional and mental drain wore on me physically. And I'm a soldier, and I'm an infantry soldier, but they wore me out. They wore me out. They were constantly on. So by extension, guess what? I had to constantly be on. There was no breather with these little dudes,
That's
man.
Why I'm not an elementary
They
school teacher.
wore me out. And I'm not ashamed to say that because I did, and maybe, one teacher told me, he goes, that means you were doing your job.
Exactly.
That means you were doing your job.
If you're
you
tired,
yes.
and not just with elementary, but with any teaching job, if you were tired at the end of the day, you did your job.
I did. I'm gonna say something on there. Full disclosure. Last thing today, and I hope my wife's not watching. So when I taught at Parlier, I would go home. My kids didn't know this in the classroom. They saw me as is, only with the tie on. I was in a coat and tie every single day that I taught. I was business. I was professional. I was clean. I was always on. When I went home, there were a few times I fell asleep on the road. I'm not joking, man. I was wiped out, and I was like, because Parlier's about a half-hour drive out from Fresno, where I live, and it's done. I'm not proud of it, you know, and it's not good, not healthy.
It's easy to do,
but
though.
more than a few. I know. It's just, listen, it's being real, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. You guys know what I'm talking about.
It's easy to do.
I was wiped out at the end of the day, teaching to my fullest ability, giving everything I've got to those kids, because a kid in Parlier, is just as valuable to me as a kid in Central or Fresno or any other school.
Yep.
They deserve, I use the same analogy, right? The Billy and the Bob thing, right? Only over there was Jose and Juan or somebody else.
They deserve it all.
They deserve the same damn quality of education that every other kid. Last sidebar. The reason I went to Parlier, and it's kind of a joke now, and I use it from some of my students. The reason I went to Parlier, it was I just finished my degree. I was getting ready to get into a credential program because you have to do the credential.
Yeah.
But I looked for jobs, to teach. So I wanted to teach. I figured I'd do the credential program at the same time. The week that I was getting ready to interview, I think it was like on a Thursday or Friday, and this is a true story. You could ask my wife. She jokes about it still. That I looked in the paper and they released the performance report for the entire county of high schools. Guess which high school was at the bottom of the entire county? It was Parlier High School. Now I'm not saying that to pick on Parlier because I love those kids and they know it. I'll kill for them. But I chose to go to Parlier. And when my wife goes, "You're going to go way out there?" Because she used to live in Selma. She knows Parlier's further out. She goes, "You're going to go out there? Why?" And I said, and I took the paper and I said, "Look, so they need me.
They need me.
They need me because they need good teachers too. And I'm not going there because, like the double negative, I'm not going there because they were on the low end of the spectrum. They were the lowest in Fresno County that year. And that next fall, I was a teacher at Parlier High School, and I'll never regret it. So I'll leave us with that thought. But
well, that's the same. That's why I'm at the school I'm at. Because when I resigned as a principal, they basically said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "You know what?
Where can I do the best good?"
Yeah, and I was initially going to go to the high school, and I said, "You know what?
That could have been easy for you."
And I said, "You know what? This is a new challenge, and I'm glad I did."
Yeah, I no regrets on my end either. I even after leaving, for other things, I never regret it because I still have kids from that school that respect me. And would do quite a bit for me if I asked them to, because they still say to this day, and I'm going to shout out to my little kids, my crew. They're in their 30s now, from Parlier High School. They know I gave I gave everything that I was nonstop, all the time, every single day, year round, for that community and that group of students. But point being, and we'll leave it with that, is it ultimately always boils down to, in our dream utopian high school, you want teachers that are going to be on. Now, I'm not saying that all teachers are perfect, but here's a golden rule that my wife and I have lived by since she started as your boss, technically, the head of the teaching association, is that you're there and your obligation and responsibility is to make sure that not only does every teacher teach well and get better, but if a teacher is not doing well, or they're bad, and don't get me wrong, they're bad apples in every bunch, right? But it's the job of leadership to make that teacher better. And if they're not doing that job, then how do you expect the teacher to get better? And that now I'm talking about administration and others. So we'll leave it at that. But so we ended up talking tonight, ladies and gentlemen, about safety and security because of the mishap, ugly, in Virginia Beach today. That was just a little while ago, not too long ago. But again, thoughts and prayers with the loved ones of the people in Virginia Beach. And maybe we need to start getting some legislators that put aside their differences. And I will say this, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that a lot of people on the right don't like, and Ted Cruz, that a lot of people on the left don't like, are getting together and trying to put bipartisan legislation that is going to eliminate lobbying corruption in Washington.
Good.
Now I'm happy for that. So that needs to go to education as well in many forms. But this is a good one to listen to for you guys if you get a chance. It's about our dream utopian high school. Tim and I are wrapping up. We're kind of getting there. We're finding all these other things. But safety and security on a high school campus nowadays, you might as well count it as a separate subject because it is that important. If a child is dead or hurt, maimed, injured because somebody walked on campus and did something to them, and how the hell are they going to learn? They can't. So this is a necessary component to having a dream utopian high school in SuperMex and Swainbo's perfect world. So that's our show for tonight. Nothing but love for you guys as usual. Make sure you're careful over the weekend. Be safe. Always be wary of your surroundings. Drive safe and spend time with your family. Enjoy. There's more to life than just the political world. SuperMex is out.